Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. Joining me from PigTownSports, we have Zach Moore back in with us again today. Zach, thank you so much for being part of the show again, especially with such a quick turnaround. How are you this weekend?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I keep having this issue where my damn right ear pod just won't hook up to my computer, and it's driving me nuts. But we press on, right? We press on.
Yep.
Want to remind everybody today's show is brought to you by Royal Farms World Famous Chicken, which is always fresh, never frozen. Right now, you can get either a 10-piece dark or an 8-piece mix for just $15, or get a 4-piece mix with Western fries and a biscuit for just $10. And in the morning, enjoy any size hot or iced coffee and a breakfast sandwich for just $5. Plus, have you tried their new baby K hash browns? I have. They are awesome. Stop into your neighborhood Royal Farms today. All right, Zach, we had some activity literally a mere hours after the show ended last week. We were talking about the winter meetings, and I had people asking me, do you think that the Orioles will make any significant moves in the during the winter meetings? And I said yes. I think that they're going to sign somebody that has an impact on this roster. Who that is, I have no idea. Technically, I was wrong. Technically, I was wrong because the signings happened the day before everybody arrived in Dallas for the winter meetings. It happened on Saturday night. The Orioles inked Tyler O'Neill to a 3-year, $45.5 million contract, and Gary Sanchez to a 1-year, $8.5 million contract. I know you have some feelings about the Gary Sanchez signing, but we're going to talk about Tyler O'Neill first. Again, Tyler O'Neill signed to be an everyday outfielder and DH for the Baltimore Orioles. He's only ever played 100 games in a season twice. Both of those years, he hit over 30 home runs. He's been on the IL 14 times in his career, including 3 times just this past season, despite the fact that he hit 31 home runs. Mike Elias and Brendan High said he was signed to be an everyday player. I don't think you're giving a guy $17 million a year to be a platoon player. He has an opt-out after year 1. So if he goes nuts, if he puts up a 2021 campaign, he can opt out and look for a bigger deal. On the other side of things, if he's often injured or he's just not great, the Orioles are probably stuck with that kind of production for the next 2 seasons following that. In your opinion, is this a good deal for the Baltimore Orioles?
I would say yes. One, because you showed agents and players that you're willing to spend a little bit of money. And yeah, they kind of overpaid for him. But and the same with Gary. You overpaid for Gary, but it goes back to the Orioles were willing to pay for a guy that they wanted. So it sets that precedence that we're taking the next step forward. But if you keep Tyler O'Neill healthy, he won a Gold Glove in 20 and 21. Like, he's a good player. His problem is he works out like he's an Olympic athlete. If you kind of limit that a little bit and he doesn't have to have, 36-inch biceps, probably stay a little bit healthier. So I'm interested to see how they handle that if they allow him to keep working out that hard, especially in season. But he brings a lot when he's healthy. Especially against left-handed pitching. This team wasn't the greatest. They weren't terrible, but they weren't the greatest against left-handed pitching. I don't know if I would pencil him in as an everyday outfielder. They can say all they want. Brandon Hyde doesn't play anybody every day except for like Gunnar Henderson.
Right.
So I don't see him being an everyday guy. If he is, it will be a platoon between left, right, and DH. So he's not going to be cemented in any one spot. That's for sure. I like the signing. I mean, when he's healthy, he's a thumper, and that's our philosophy is hit the long ball. He fits the mold. When he's healthy, he's a good outfielder. He still has speed. He can steal some bases, which is another thing that we need. He fits our mold pretty well. It's just, can you keep him healthy? And after the year that we had last year with all the injuries, that's probably the biggest question mark, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and after you were on the show a few weeks back, I really started looking at Tyler O'Neill as a desirable player, knowing that and I guess for me it was foreshadowing without knowing it was foreshadowing. Knowing that the Orioles probably weren't going to play in the waters to get Teoscar Hernandez, although he's still out there.
Mhm.
Teoscar Hernandez is still out there waiting to be signed by somebody. So maybe David Rubenstein pulls Mike Elias aside and says, "Go sign some dudes, please." I don't know. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I've really started to like think of Tyler O'Neill as a player that I'd like to have on the team because he absolutely destroys left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Like the tune of like a 326 batting average, 16 of his 31 home runs, and he had an OPS of above 1100 against
Mhm.
left-handed pitching last year. He does work out like a freak, which is probably why he's spent so much time on the IL. But I like the idea of Tyler O'Neill being here, especially when, like you said, Brandon Hyde loves to match up. He loves to platoon, and he loves to have flexibility in the DH spot. So I like the Tyler O'Neill signing. The Gary Sanchez signing, when I first saw it, kind of a head scratcher because he hasn't hit higher than 232 since 2017. And generally speaking, it's 220 or less the last 6 or 7 years. So when I look at that, and I didn't think he was that great of a defensive catcher, and he's not, but his defensive metrics are better than James McCann. He provides more power. I know you have, like I said, you have your feelings about Gary Sanchez, so I'll let you say what you need to about him. Thoughts on the Gary Sanchez signing, and then these two players, is it enough for the Orioles offense to take a step forward from how they finished last year?
No. No.
Yeah.
They need more help. I think they gave these young kids a chance to win it with themselves because they did it in AA, they did it in AAA all together. They got their shot, and now I feel like it's time to provide them reinforcements around the diamond, whether that be platooning or every day. They're going to have to make some changes, in my opinion. If they roll out with what they got again, I mean, okay, they've won what 190 games, 100 and almost 200 games in the last 2 years. Like, okay,
70 in the
but
last 3 years.
yeah, I mean, they've won a lot of games together. It's just, I think some veterans need to be in there. Gary, I was really upset with at first. Like, it blew my mind that he got $8.5 million because he only caught 28 games last year. James caught over 60. Can Gary even hold up for 60 games? That's the biggest question.
Sure.
And then, but now when I look at like, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Kyle Hishigawa or whatever, he's got a lot of power too. He got what, 6.5, almost 7 million. And now Carson Kelly can't even hit, and he got 6 million a year. So now when you look at Gary, if Gary can get back to a decent production, 8.5 kind of just seems like maybe market value for a power hitting catcher, even if it is a backup. Because, I mean, let's be honest, rates right now, market value is incredibly inflated. When I first saw it, market value was 1.3, we gave him 8.5. It blew my mind. But now it's like, okay, two catchers have signed for basically 6.5. Gary's at 8.5. You know, Gary's got a great arm. I'll give him that. He's got a great arm. He's a little lazy defensively when it comes to blocking. I'll never forget him missing a pass ball in the postseason and walking to it, and a guy from second scored. I've hated him ever since as a former catcher, but if he doesn't do that now, great. But you know, now the contract maybe looks like a very slight overpay when originally it was like huge overpay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of people speculating that this could be a temporary move until Samuel Basallo is ready.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that when Samuel Basallo was really coming up in the prospect ranks the last couple of years, he was talked, especially early on, he was talked about how his defense needed some work. Now I'm hearing that the defense is fairly solid, probably not great, but it's going to be enough for how productive that bat is going to be.
Yeah.
With that in mind, does Gary Sanchez make it the entire season with the Orioles? If Samuel Basallo comes up, does he become the backup catcher, or does he play first base? Does Adley move to first base? Do they kind of make things interchangeable there? Is that ultimately the plan, that he's a stopgap until Basallo is ready?
There's a couple different ways this could go. Gary could have a fantastic season, and Samuel could also have a fantastic season. And now you got a trade chip at the deadline, which would be great. I personally don't see Samuel being here at all other than his cup of coffee in 2025. And he'll get the Jackson Holiday treatment. He'll get the Mayo treatment. Here's your 8 to 10 games. Come up here, explore what big league life is like. Here's your issues. Here's what we want you to work on. The thing is, so yes, his defense was kind of criticized for a little while. He was 19 years old, 20 years old, right? Now you're looking at a guy who's 21. Things have gotten better. He's gotten more time under his belt. He's still, the biggest thing is you have to learn how to handle a pitching staff in the upper levels.
Yeah.
And he's 21, right? You're not going to send him out there and say, hey, go figure out Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and Jazz Chisholm, in the 7th, 8th inning where he hasn't caught the same guy very much. They're not going to do that. He's got to learn. There's some good hitters in AAA, some good guys that are like Kobe Mayo. They're going to come up and he'll have to learn how to pitch them. He'll have to learn, okay, I did this last at bat against this guy. Now let's switch it up a little bit so he's not on my fastball. It's little things like that he has to learn at an upper level. They're not going to throw him into the fire in the big leagues to learn it. They will for their cup of tea, and those couple games might be pretty bad. But I mean, that's the thing of it. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but he's just got a lot to learn. I don't see them I don't know. I think fans are ready for him, but we know when these guys come up, they look awful the first time. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. They have all looked really awful. And I'm sure he'll come up. He'll look awful. Everybody will say, let's trade him because he sucks, just like they're doing with Mayo. Look, these kids are young. So it's just going to take some time. And the Orioles play it right, in my opinion. They take it very slow, probably a little too slow for some fans. They come up, they stink, they go back down. They figure out what they got to do, and then they'll be ready. I think Samuel probably makes the team coming out of spring training in 26.
I can see that, and I think it's an excellent point that you make, and I think it speaks to the fact that you played baseball at the professional level, that you're able to sit there and say, you're not just going to throw a catcher into the fire at that young of an age and be in the middle of what's a likely playoff or pennant race, and say, hey, go figure out the world's best hitters and handle a legitimate pitching staff. I think you're absolutely correct. And it's something that a lot of us don't think about because we've never been at that level. So I love and appreciate that point that you made. Want to remind everybody today's show is brought to you by the Governor's Challenge. The top high school basketball talent from across the country returns to the Wacomico Civic Center December 26th through the 30th. Witness 5 full days of elite competition featuring over 140 high school basketball teams. For tickets and info, visit govchallenge.org. That's govchallenge.org. So let's talk a little bit about this offense, because you and I agree that Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez are not enough to take the Orioles from where they were to where they need to be. Last year, the offense, especially in the second half, really, really struggled. They scored 1 run in the playoffs. Now, they have moved the wall in. Or they're in the process of moving the wall, and it will be in by the time we hit opening day 2025. And so that's going to help a little bit, because there were quite a few fly balls that the Orioles hit in the postseason that would have been home runs or off the wall had the wall been where it's going to be. That's not going to do the full trick, because you also got to play games on the road. And so they have Ryan O'Hearn, they have Ryan Mountcastle, they have Kobe Mayo. Is O'Hearn going to be on this roster when the 2025 season opens? I think Mountcastle is going to be here because he's a Gold Glove caliber defensive first baseman, and I think they moved that wall in part because of Ryan Mountcastle. Does Kobe Mayo start the season in the minor leagues again? And what moves do the Orioles need to make to get this offense, jump started? Because honestly, Zach, I don't think that they have a number 3 hitter on their roster right now if you want Gunnar batting leadoff.
Yeah, I don't see Mayo cracking the lineup either. He just doesn't have a set position. You're not going to keep 2 right-handed first basemen. You're not going to try him out in right field in the big leagues. He could hit 400 in spring training and 100 at bats, and I still don't think he's going to crack the team. He's going to get the Kerstad treatment. You're going to have to go to AAA. We're going to have to figure out a spot for you. You're going to have to earn playing time up here. He's a great hitter. Don't get me wrong. I think we all know it. It's just the defense isn't there for Baltimore standards. We've been pretty fortunate, even during the bad years, that we've had a pretty stellar defense on the field all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're ready to accept the offense and then just deal with the defense. That it hurts the team. So he's going to start in AAA. It's just and going and switching over to Ryan O'Hearn. He's the only left-handed bat on the bench right now, and maybe Kerstad too. Maybe it depends on who's playing when and kind of thing. But you have Rivera, who's right-handed, Urias, who's right-handed, and Mateo, who's right-handed. They don't scare absolutely anybody coming off the bench or even playing. So it's like those are guys that are upgradable. And I know people love Mateo because of his speed. Look, he's 30. That speed's not going to be there forever. If you have a chance to upgrade that position with a better player, please take it. Because, yes, he has a lot of speed. And until Brandon Hyde proves that he's going to let these guys run, it's a waste. He doesn't play enough. He's a good left-handed pitcher. He hits that well. But it's just... it's a waste of a spot. Urias hit 270 against lefties last year. That's a guy I would probably keep because he can play in multiple positions. You don't run anyway. He's got a decent glove. Last year was a little down, but it picked up towards the end. Rivera's also a good hitter. He's got postseason experience. He hit well for us. But those are three guys that really kind of they're all the same. The only difference is Mateo's speed. But the other two hit better than him. And they're all three upgradable. Urias, I think, probably has a little bit of trade value. Say if St. Louis trades Arenado, that's a good spot for him to go and get everyday playing time. And you could get a bullpen arm for that. Not a good one, but a bullpen arm. They just, I don't know. I think they're a little too loyal to their guys. And like I said, I understand it. They gave them time to try to win together. But in my opinion, I'd keep Urias. I'd try to upgrade the other two positions, maybe get another left-handed bat, maybe one that plays, infield or outfield. Doesn't even matter. But they've got some holes. It's just, and I see like maybe Mayo's a DH, but the problem with Mayo is everybody else can DH too. And you've already got a right-handed DH. Like, if you're facing a left-handed pitcher, you want Tyler O'Neill to probably play right field. And then, Mountcastle will play first. So maybe he could DH there, but that's probably where Gary Sanchez is going to DH against left-handed pitching right now. The problem is against right-handed pitching, we'll probably say Kerstad will be in right. O'Hearn will be at first. And Adley will probably be DHing. Maybe. If not, that's another position on the bench that you could probably slot a left-handed hitter in, primarily, hopefully, an outfielder or something. There's moves to make. Look, the winter meetings was slow, and I expected a fury of moves around the league. There wasn't many at all. So there's pretty much almost every single position player is available.
Yeah,
they need to go find a good one.
And I'll tell you, man, everything you just said just points to me that it's glaringly obvious that a guy like Cody Bellinger would make so much sense for this team.
Yeah.
It would make so much sense for this team. He's a left-handed bat. He can play all three outfield positions. He can play first base. He gives you a middle of the order bat. He's going to be traded from the Cubs. They just traded for Kyle Tucker. And they're probably going to extend Tucker too. Cody Bellinger makes so much sense for this team. And after what you just saw the Yankees do this past week, take him out from under them because they want him. They want him. You've got the prospects to put a package together to get him. Here's the thing: they're not going to do it. I'd be absolutely shocked, but it makes so much sense that it seems ignorant not to do it, in my opinion. But that's just one man's opinion. You mentioned the defense with this team. Gunnar led if not the majors, he led the American League in errors by a shortstop. He's got a ton of range. He's not a guy that really sets his feet when he throws. I think he plays shortstop a little too fast. And again, I'm not an expert with it. I just know what my eyes tell me. I think he's a good defender who tries to do too much, right? And so is the Orioles' best defensive alignment in the infield Mountcastle at first, Holiday at second, Gunnar at short, and Westberg at third? Or is there a shakeup that you think needs to happen? I've heard a lot of people suggest that maybe Holiday should move to shortstop. I don't think he has the arm strength to play
No.
shortstop at the big league level. You can just see it on his throws at second base. Is the Orioles' defensive alignment as it currently stands? I think it's how they open the season, but it's how they should open the season.
Unless you acquire Bo Bichette, Gunner's going to stay at shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
And Gunner's a good shortstop. Last year we saw he's a guy that always set his feet. He threw over the top, and he threw a rocket to first base. Last year, he did it in the beginning of the season too. So, and I made a video about it, and I talked about it a few times, where I thought maybe he was going through like some tendonitis, like a bicep tendonitis, because he wasn't coming over the top almost ever for a few months. Everything was down low. He was sidearming everything. He was submarining it. He was running to kind of, gain momentum. That wasn't Gunner. But then in the late September and then October, guess what we saw again? It came back over the top. So it kind of fit the narrative. Maybe I'm not going to sit here and say that, he was hurt. It looked like it. His defense doesn't bother me. I just think he was going through some stuff last year. He was probably overcompensating, just even fielding the ball because, okay, I got to get around it so I can keep moving. My arm hurts. I can't really throw it that hard. He's fine. We've watched him make a ton of web gems. He's probably our best option. Westberg is a great glove. I love Westberg at shortstop. Came up a shortstop. Gunner's got an elite arm. He's probably top 3 in the league when it comes to arm strength. Him and Bobby, and I'm sure there's another one we could probably throw in there somewhere.
I think O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah. He's probably got number 1, right?
Yeah.
But we'll say Gunner probably has the 3rd best arm in baseball. Could it work at 3rd? Sure. It worked for Machado. I'm not comparing those two. I think Gunner's a better fielder than Machado at shortstop. I played with Machado at shortstop, and it was ugly. Third base was obviously phenomenal. So, yeah, he doesn't bother me. The only shakeup I would like to see is maybe Holiday in center field. And I know more and more people are kind of getting on that train. Mullins earned himself the right to play in center field a little bit longer. Hit 286 in the second half. Hit a good time. So if they can carry that over, Mullins still plays good enough defense, but I'm only moving Jackson if I acquire a good player. Bregman, Bichette, somebody like that. Somebody that makes me move Jackson Holiday center field. I'm not just going to do it and then play Urias at third base and put Westberg at second. That's not worth it. Jackson's just a freak athlete. So I don't even think it matters where you put him. He's going to excel, but I'm with you on the arm strength at shortstop. It's a big difference when you don't have an elite arm at shortstop and how many more guys are safe at first base on double plays and whatnot.
Sure.
But the defense it's fine. I mean, Westberg, a healthy Westberg now is going to be better at third base. His arm strength honestly isn't that great for third, but his mechanics are good. So he's able to get the ball there on time. He's very good on dribblers and stuff and barehanded balls. Would you like to see an elite arm at third? Sure. I'll take Westberg at third, though.
I'll tell you, Westberg may be my favorite player on the team. The guy's just a ball player. You put him anywhere, and he's going to play. He's going to play well for you. He's going to be scrappy for you. You can put him in the corner outfield, and I think that he would be a plus defender out there. I think he's a plus defender anywhere you put him. I have a lot of faith in Jordan Westberg, and I'm excited for the step forward he's going to take. He was an all-star this past year in his first full season, and I think he's going to take that next step forward again this year. He is maybe one of the most underrated players in the game. As for Gunnar, I would not bet on Gunnar Henderson moving off a shortstop. He is the face of the franchise, really. Yep. He's your superstar, and he's a good shortstop. Wouldn't bet on Gunnar Henderson coming off a short. And if you are betting on Gunnar Henderson coming off a short, you may have a gambling problem. And if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Not all segues are gold, but I did my best there. The big news of the winter meetings was Juan Soto. We knew it was coming. We knew he was going to get a mega contract. I was championing the idea of the Orioles signing Juan Soto. I was on board at 8 to 12 years, 50 million a year. 12 is like really like 15 years, $765 million, $75 million signing bonus. He gets an opt out after 5 years. If the Mets want to force him to stay, they've got to add $4 million a year to his salary after year 5, which would make the deal worth a total of $805 million. They take him away from the Yankees, but he stays in New York. I think the Mets, when Steve Cohen came out and said that he would not be outbid for Juan Soto, I think it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to the Mets. Love seeing these fans cry. I'm not sure how much I love it for the game of baseball that we're paying dudes $51 million a year over the course of 15 years. I mean, they're going to be paying him over $50 million a year when he's 41 years old. I think that's insane. Your thoughts on the Soto contract and what it means for baseball as a whole?
It's a lot. And honestly, when you look at him and Kyle Tucker side by side over the last 3 seasons, there's not that much of a difference. And it wasn't even long after that contract was signed that Kyle Tucker immediately said, "I want 10 for 400," and he was listed on the trade market. Like it's bad for baseball that they just paid a guy who's probably only got maybe 2 or 3 years left in the outfield, even at 26 years old, to just DH. Ohtani got it, but you know what? Ohtani pitches. He's had 2 Tommy Johns, and now they don't even need him. He could be a bullpen arm for all they care. Go in there and close. Whatever. But Ohtani deserves it. I'm not going to say that Soto didn't deserve it. I think it was a way overpay. And that's Boris. I think a lot of that Red Sox smoke was Boris driving up the price on the Yankees. I think all the stuff coming out about the Yankees and this and trying to make them look bad and stuff, I think that's just everybody trying to cope, including Soto. And look, players don't call each other 2 days after they lost in the World Series. Like, I don't care that he didn't talk to his teammates. He probably didn't care. The whole family suite thing, good for the Yankees for standing their ground, honestly. Good for them. Like, you don't need to cater to one player, a player who is not even the best player on your roster, right? If you didn't do it for Jeter, you're not doing it for Juan Soto, who's your second best player. That's just me. And good for them.
And it's absolutely insane when you think about the fact that Juan Soto is wasn't even the best player on the Yankees. He's getting $51 million a year. He's making, his contract is double. The length in terms of his contract is double what Aaron Judge got. Double. And Aaron Judge is arguably a top 5 hitter of all time. And it's not a strong argument to say that he's not. Right. And he's making significantly less than Juan Soto. I don't know. Juan Soto's a great player. He is a great player. He's going to hit close to 300 for you. He's going to get on base at a 400-plus clip. He's going to hit 30 to 40 home runs every year for you. He's not a good defender, and he's not going to stay in the outfield for much longer. And you put him next to somebody compared his career stats through age 26 to Mike Trout's. If Mike Trout was 26 years old and a free agent right now, that's going to be a $1 billion contract.
Yeah. Mike was head and shoulders better. Yeah.
And Juan Soto is, and look, it sounds like sour grapes when I say something like that. I know how it sounds. Look, Juan Soto got that bag, and good for him. Good for him. I'm glad he didn't go back to the Yankees. I've always liked Juan Soto. I think he's a phenomenal player, but the numbers are just outrageous. They are absolutely outrageous. And I think, just like I don't think there's ever going to be a salary cap in baseball, I don't think you're ever going to put limitations or addendums on players' contracts. If, like somebody proposed the other day, if you don't make the All-Star team for 3 years, your contract gets cut. down to a certain amount or something like that. Stuff like that is never going to happen. The players' union is way too strong. We're
Yeah.
stuck with this.
That's a fan base vote anyway. Like, that's not even fair.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, and I'm not saying that it was a reputable source that proposed this, but this is the ridiculousness that I'm seeing out there that people are thinking of to combat this. You're not going to combat it. What's going to end up happening if you want to combat it is that baseball as a whole is going to have to just decide without it being collusion that they don't want to do this anymore. And it kind of looked like we were headed in that direction with some of you were seeing shorter contracts, just like in football, shorter contracts but big money. And now you're seeing these huge contracts. Shohei last year, Ohtani this year, and name a 10+ year contract that has ever worked out. I'll wait because you cannot name them. Those contracts do not work out. Good for the Mets. If they go out and they win 3 World Series in the first half of that contract, good for them. They got what they paid for. And when that happens, you're paying for the front end of that contract anyway for that production. I just don't think they're talking about how Mets are World Series contenders now. How does one player combined with Francisco Lindor make you a World Series contender? Like, what are you going to do about your pitching staff? What are you going to do about your bullpen? He's one hitter. Yeah, the Yankees got to the World Series, but they had a good bullpen and a good rotation. They're not complete just because they signed Juan Soto.
No, and when I've looked at it too, Soto's been really protected his entire career, allowing him to take a lot of walks. He's hit in front of Bryce Harper. He's hit in front of Tatis and Manny Machado, and he's hit in front of Judge. Teams were petrified to put a guy on in front of those players. So they had to go right at Juan Soto. You had to. And he has a good eye. I'm not taking that away from him whatsoever. He spat on a lot of pitchers' pitches, and he walked. But now, what if Vientos gets hurt? He has no protection in New York whatsoever, unless they sign Pete. But if they go into the season with Vientos hitting behind Juan Soto, his production is going to drop flat out. And he's a good hitter in the NL East. I pulled his numbers, and he's a 300 hitter career against the NL East with over 150 home runs. It's a good hitter. I would have probably chose the NL East too. I just think the contract was just absurd.
I mean, the contract's absurd. And I mean, when you look at what you're paying for with Juan Soto, how many players have you seen throughout the history of the game that hit 270, get on base with a 400 clip, and can hit 30 to 40 home runs? He's not a necessarily unique player. There's been a number of players out there that do that. So what makes Juan so, and I get it, it's because he's 26 years old. He's a young guy. He's got that eye. I mean, we're not that far removed from a year where he hit 246.
Right.
You know, we're like 2-3 years removed from a season like that. And I get it. There's growing pains when you get into Major League Baseball. It's the hardest sport to play in the world, in my opinion. And playing it at the big league level, the gap between AAA and the majors is the biggest gap there is in all of professional sports. I look at it and I say, you know, good for Juan Soto getting that bag. I would love him as a Baltimore Oriole. Don't get me wrong, but Jesus, man, $51 million a year for 15 years is stupid money. And you can argue that nobody deserves that kind of money, but I don't think that he's, you know, extraordinarily better than every other player to come through the game that he gets the biggest contract, maybe the second biggest contract in terms of average annual value of all time.
Yeah, I mean, and AJ Pierzynski on his podcast kind of hit it on the head. Like, I'm not turning the TV on to watch Juan Soto. You know, if I get an alert with bases loaded, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, and Juan Soto's, I don't care. He's going to take a walk. It's boring. I'll turn the TV on for Ohtani and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Aaron Judge and Mike Trout. Soto, I'll just wait for the text alert. Like, so to pay a guy like that, and that's league wide. I mean, that's coming from a former big leaguer. Like, he's not the guy, but he's paid like the guy. Even on the Mets, he's not the guy. That's Lindor's team. Yeah. And that's not going to change. Lindor is the best player on that team, and You just paid a guy a lot of money to be the number 2 again.
It's an honestly interesting point to make because you look at his career, he's never been the guy.
Nope.
He's never been the guy. I mean, in Bryce Harper wasn't there when Soto came along. I think he played with him for one season. I think maybe in 2018 they played together a little bit.
Yeah, but that was back when Rendon was really good.
Yeah, and Rendon was really good, and I know that his career kind of tailed off at that point. But in 2019, when they won the World Series, that was still very much Ryan Zimmerman's team. You know,
Yeah.
he's never been the guy. He goes out to San Diego, that's Manny's and Tatis's team. You know, then he goes to New York, that's Judge's and Cole's team, and now he's with the Mets. It's Lindor's team now. It's going to be in the eyes of the media and the fans of baseball. It's going to be Soto's team. Is he going to be able to perform in that spotlight? I'm sure that he can. He's Juan Soto. He's a damn good player. But it's I'm not trying to disparage the guy. I just think it's absurd to give that kind of a contract to a guy who is very, very good, but not the greatest player the world has ever seen. I'm looking at Aaron Judge's contract, and it sucks that guy doesn't have an opt-out because he's
worth a lot of money.
Judge, if he had an opt-out, man, you think that guy's not going to opt out and be like, give me 9, 10 years, 8 to 10 years at $60 million, $70 million a year? You think he wouldn't do that? Good Lord, hometown discount for sure to stay with the New York Yankees. Today's show also brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. Miss anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, including Jamal Lewis, Mike Bordick, Marty Morningwig, Rick Neuheisel, and more. You can find them all right now in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. And watch or listen to GCR every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or right here on Facebook and YouTube. We had Glenn kick off the show with us last week, and he had me rolling in my chair laughing. He was hysterical. So thank you to Glenn for coming on the show last week. And go check out GCR. I used to produce a show, and it's a hell of a fun time. Yankees. They signed Max Fried, 8 years, $218 million. They trade for Devin Williams. Nestor Cortez goes to the Brewers as part of that package. The Red Sox, they acquired Garrett Crochet in a trade with the White Sox. They trade catcher Kyle Teal, their the number 25 overall prospect. Outfielder Braden Montgomery, number 54 overall, which are each of their last 2 first-round draft picks.
Yep.
Infielder Chase, is it Maydroff? Chase Maydroff? I don't know. I should have thought about how to pronounce that before we started the show. But he's Boston's number 11 prospect, and Wilkerman Gonzalez, their number 14 overall prospect. The point of all this, Zach, is that the Yankees went to the World Series last year. They won the division. They've only gotten better this offseason, despite the fact that they've lost Soto. I think the team's better now. Yeah. The Red Sox they were supposedly in on Soto. They were supposedly trying to sign Burnes. They traded for Garrett Crochet. They're looking to get better. I think they're tired of being in 4th and 5th place in the division. Do the Orioles need to react or respond to this? 1. And 2, what would be the Orioles equivalent to that trade with Garrett Crochet? And are you okay with the fact that the Orioles weren't even finalists for that trade?
Yeah. Look, Garrett's a good pitcher. Would he have signed an extension in Baltimore? I pretty much can say absolutely not. Right. In Boston, sure, he'll probably sign an extension. It's a big market team, you know. The equivalent to that trade would have been Basayo and Bradfield and who was the infielder? We'll probably say maybe like Frederick Ben-Sakome, and we'll just throw an arm in there, maybe like Pham or somebody pretty decent. Like, fans would have lost their mind, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like, Bradfield's the future. He's a good player. Basayo's the future. He's a good player. And I've talked to several Red Sox podcasters about this, and they're excited, but they're also kind of like, damn, like they were literally just 1 year away from a 6-year window with a ton of young prospects at a World Series. They were just 1 year. If they just waited just 1 year, right, you would have had Kyle Tia, Marcel Mayer, Roman Anthony, and Brandon Montgomery. Paired that with Tristan Casas and Wilmer Abreu and Rafael Devers, that lineup would have been unstoppable. Granted, probably around 27 because it takes a little bit for rookies to kind of get their footing. One of them probably would have popped and been close to a Rookie of the Year, if not won it. Roman Anthony's number one guy in baseball right now. Marcel Mayer's probably the number one shortstop prospect. You'll see him this year. They were close. And having a catcher for a long time, and Kyle Teal's very, very good. That would have set them up for a long time. If they don't win it, if they don't even sign him to an extension and don't win it, it was a failed trade, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Because that window that they would have had with those guys, they can still do it without him. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But having those two extra thumpers in your lineup long term, that would have been something special in Boston. And the podcasters that I've talked to kind of feel the same way, but they're also excited to have Garrett, which I completely agree. And it would have been the same here in Baltimore. If we would have traded Basayo and Bradfield and everybody else and won a World Series with him, it's worth it. But when you don't, that's when it bites you in the butt. And the Yankees have made the better moves. Devin Williams is a top 3 reliever in all of baseball. In the last 3 years, his numbers are 1, 2, or 3 in pretty much every single category as a reliever. That's a big blow to the Orioles. Max Fried, you might see him 3 times this year, maybe 4. Is he going to beat you personally? Maybe twice. That's not a huge deal. He's going to beat other teams, don't get me wrong. 8 years is ridiculous. You might get 4 out of him, maybe, depending if he can hold up into his mid-30s and late 30s. I don't think the Orioles should overreact, and signing Burnes is not an overreaction because you already know what you have kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to overpay for him. He wants to be in San Francisco, and he's made that very clear. He's made it very clear in his Instagrams. Boris has made that very clear. Right now, he said that I'm waiting for the best offer from San Francisco. There's a $50 million difference between Toronto and San Francisco right now, and he's not taking Toronto's deal. He wants to be in San Francisco. I don't see Burnes re-signing here, but I still don't think the Orioles have to overreact, so to say, because there's still a lot of good players on the market, and there's still good players that could be acquired via a trade. You go out and if you get Tanner Scott or Kirby Yates and Mike Soroka, you can put a combination together that will compete with those two teams and their moves. The Orioles already had a good lineup. They struggled in the second half, but they're a good lineup, and they're a good defense. The pitching in the second half was pretty good. Burnes was great, obviously, in September and October. But the rest of the staff was good, too. Kramer had a below 2.5 ERA. Povich had a 2.6 in all of September, and all these guys had 5 starts. You upgrade Suarez's spot, and Eflin had a 3 in September, and you get Grayson back healthy. If he takes that next step, the rotation's already in a pretty good spot with Grayson and Eflin and Povich and Kramer. I would like Kramer to be the 5 because he's probably the most inconsistent out of all of them. Agreed. It's an upgradable spot, but he's still good enough to give you a lot of good innings. And he, knock on wood, has stayed fairly healthy in his career. Good number 5, in my opinion. He's got, if you compared him against every other team in baseball as number 5, he's going to be right there probably in the top 10, maybe close to top 5. He's a good number 5. And I just think if you go out and get one good arm, whether you have to trade Kobe Mayo for Jarrett Jones or something, or you acquire Framber Valdez. I don't want to give up a ton for Framber, but he helps the team, and he's left-handed, and it kind of plays into the ballpark. I've looked into Andrew Heaney's numbers. He could help. I wouldn't make him like a number 3 or anything. I would like to keep him as like a 5 and bump Kramer out. But Texas and Baltimore have very similar field dimensions. And when I compared his numbers in Camden Yards last year and Texas, it was like a 3.14 ERA in those two ballparks. That plays well in Camden Yards. The difference obviously being that Texas being indoors, ball flies a little bit better, but he's also not facing Aaron Judge all the time either. So, and Rafael Devers and superstars that are in the AL East. Not that the AL West doesn't have any, but what I'm saying is they're the better players in the AL East. So but he's a guy I would kick the tires on. He wouldn't be my only move, but
Mhm.
there's plenty of guys out there, and you don't have to reach for anything. You don't have to overreact. Like, you get one or two good starters. We'll even say one good starter and two or three really good bullpen guys, and we're sitting right there with everybody else with a good pitching staff.
Yeah,
And
and I think that I can agree with you on that. They definitely need help in the bullpen, and I don't think that they let Coulomb and Webb go to not upgrade there. And
yeah,
they were two of the Orioles' best relievers, especially when they needed them down the stretch when they both came off of the IL. And you notice the difference in the bullpen when those guys were both hurt. So I think that if the Orioles are willing to let them go, and Webb just signed with Texas for $1.5 million or something along those lines, or was it
yeah,
1.2? It wasn't a
1.2.
lot of money. Yeah,
Yeah.
1.2 million. It wasn't a lot of money. I think the Orioles do plan on upgrading their bullpen. But I think that they need. I mean, we talked about this with Glenn last week. You need to replace Corbin Burnes and Anthony Santander, and I think you said the same thing, just to get back to where you were, and that's before you improve,
Right.
right? And so for me, I think we can all come to the realization, and we all have for quite a while now, that Corbin Burnes is not coming back. It's the Giants and the Blue Jays that are that are said to be the most aggressive for his services. I've thought basically since the regular season ended that San Francisco is a perfect fit for Corbin Burnes. I'm surprised he doesn't have a contract in hand from them yet. But
Let
it's
me
also
ask you a
been
question on that. If they were to acquire Corbin Burnes, we'll say between a 5 and 7 year deal, and they have to pay Jacob Webb next year, would Jacob Webb be available?
I I would love it if are you talking about
Not Jacob Webb.
uh
Logan Webb.
Logan
Sorry,
Webb? Logan
Logan
Webb?
Webb.
I love Logan Webb. I would love Logan Webb in Baltimore. I think he had an off year last year, and he still
Hmm.
had like a 3.7 to
Yeah.
3.9 ERA, and it was arguably his worst season.
Yep.
And I think it's just because maybe trying to do too much. Maybe there was a little bit of injury that we didn't know about there. But they didn't have a great offense. They weren't a great team last year. I
Right.
think you put Logan Webb in a pennant race. I think he is one of the best pitchers that you're maybe in baseball. I think he's a top 10,
Hmm.
top 15 pitcher in baseball. Would he be available? Maybe. I mean, it's so hard for me to say. I won't pretend to be an expert on what it takes to make trades and what it takes to and what teams' thought process would be to sign a guy like Corbin Burnes. What would they have to do with the rest of their rotation? But I will tell you that if he became available, I'd be chomping at the bit for the Orioles to make that move.
I'd give up
Um,
Mayo for him.
yeah, I mean, I I'd give up Mayo. I would give up Kerstad. There's not really a ton of players in the Orioles system that aren't already established that I wouldn't give up. Like Basayo and Holiday are probably the two that I would not give up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to have Logan Webb in Baltimore. I'd love to have Corbin Burnes back in Baltimore. But it's also been reported that the Orioles aren't yet out in the Burnes sweepstakes. So I think that's a lot of that is just Scott Boras trying to up his clients' money totals. You're saying there's no chance Corbin Burnes resigns in Baltimore, because I think a lot of people are kind of like, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I don't want to exaggerate, but I think there's a good bit of Orioles fans that are thinking to themselves, he hasn't signed yet. Maybe there's a chance.
I think there's certainly a chance. I mean, it's been reported that Toronto's at the $250 million range. Look, if the Orioles came up and hit 250, that's a bigger deal than 250 in Toronto because of the international taxes and stuff like that. He would probably take that. I think he just really wants to go to San Francisco. It's a 45-minute flight back to Arizona. He could go home all the time quickly, see his family, see his kids. He's got 3 kids under 3 years old. And that's a big thing he's taking into consideration right now. And look, money talks, I get it, but family talks too. And everyone else has to be on board with where you sign. And look, people are like, oh, well, the Orioles aren't spending money, but they have to realize that a wife could kill the deal instantly. You could have 275 in Baltimore and 220 in San Francisco, and you'll make even less money. But the fact that you can go home in 45 minutes, because the Orioles allowed him to do that too. Like, he left after his start, he would go home and he would come back a day before his next start. They allowed him to be with his family. And I think that plays, right? if San Francisco does the same thing, he's got even longer, right? It's what, a 6-hour flight to Arizona from Baltimore? I don't know personally. I never made the flight, but think
I
about
don't
that.
think it's 6 hours. It's like 5 hours to the West Coast.
Okay,
I
so
think Arizona's probably like probably 4.5, maybe
4.5. So we'll
5.
say 8 hours, 8 extra hours that he is away from his family. Not, I mean, look, it's not a huge deal, but that adds up every week, right? You're taking over a course of a season, you're taking over 200 hours away from your family when you don't have to. It's a big deal. But look, if they get close, if the Orioles are like, look, and I asked too, like, is he worth, do you really go all out? 7 for 280, like really make the pot sweet? Could he take that? Sure. I've floated the idea of 3 for 330 or 135. Like, really pay him on a short deal. A lot of money. I think that's probably the best bet to go for the Orioles, but I don't think that's the best bet for Corbin, especially with declining numbers. He wants longevity. He wants sustainability in the contract. He's not at an age and with his numbers, betting on himself, probably not smart right about now, but I don't know. I would try everything.
Yeah, I would try everything also. I mean, he's 9 months younger than Max Fried. He's a better overall pitcher than Max Fried, and he has been healthy throughout his entire career. I expect him to get more. If Fried got 8 at 218, how Fried gets anything, how Burnes gets anything less than, 8 at 250, 260, I just don't see how that happens, And so for me, I think the Orioles are all the way out on Corbin Burnes. I just think that they are.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're out on acquiring any kind of starting pitcher. Today's show brought to you by Pressbox Print. We're in the final days of the current print issue of Pressbox before it makes way for our annual Best of issue. Coming this Wednesday, our annual Best of issue celebrates the top people, performances, and moments of 2024. The issue will feature our 2024 Mo Gavin Sports Person of the Year on the cover. I'm not going to tell you now. You'll have to wait. You'll be able to find the Best of issue all throughout the region, including in 60 Royal Farm stores. You can read it all starting later this week at PressBoxOnline.com. There are some pitchers that the Orioles could acquire. Before we get into that,
sounds like the Astros are about to sign Arenado or trade for him. I'm sorry,
Arenado.
That's that means that Bregman is done. Does that put him in play for Boston or New York? Boris is asking for way too much money for him, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. He wants the same average annual value of Manny Machado, and Manny Machado is a superior, even at his age, is a superior player. If you go back, for their career, the numbers are very similar. But if you look at just the last 5 seasons, Machado is a superior ball player to Alex Bregman. He shouldn't be getting that kind of money. Boston makes a lot of sense. You put him and Trevor Story on the left side of that infield. You move Rafael Devers over the first base. Boston makes a lot of sense for Alex Bregman. The Yankees, according to John Heyman, every top free agent makes a lot of sense for the Yankees. But Bregman does make sense for the Yankees. Yeah. They need a third baseman, and I could see them making that move too. The rich get richer, my friend. I'll tell you that much. Would love it if the Orioles made a play for him, especially after moving that wall in. But I don't think they're thinking like that.
I also wanted to ask your opinion too. I'm back to Bellinger to Baltimore. What about Ian Happ?
Ian Happ, I don't know. I like Ian Happ. He's a good player, but does
Bellinger move the needle more for you?
Bellinger's always moved the needle more for me, and that's probably a little bit of bias because I just love his personality, and I also think that he's just like this, like a cool customer, and I love his swing. I love his swing, and I think it profiles so beautifully for Camden Yards, and he's got the versatility that the team needs. Do I expect him to be MVP, Cody Bellinger? No, but if he's 2023 or even 2024 Cody Bellinger, it makes a lot of sense for this ball club. I like him better than Happ. I just don't know that Happ, he makes the Orioles better. I don't know that he has that same presence that Bellinger has.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? And so that's but if the Orioles go and they trade for Ian Happ, I'm not going to be upset about it. You know what I mean? But I'd rather have Bellinger. there's a lot of guys that I would like to have, and we could do 3 hours on this if
Yeah.
we have limited we have limited time. So we'll keep it rolling here. Before we get into some of the pitchers that the Orioles could trade for, and I know that you talked about this on the what is it, the Exit 52 podcast? Is that what you talked with Eric Arditi?
Oh, that was just me and him chatting last night.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I know that you spoke with him about it last night. The pitchers list article that came out that had some fans in an uproar. Most fans read it and don't believe most, if any, of what came out in this article. But there is an article from Pitcher List that's making its rounds. Makes a lot of one source claims. Chief among them, I'll try and make this succinct. Rubenstein is willing to spend, but Elias refuses to do so, in part because spending more would make Elias more accountable and place higher expectations. Don't believe that for a second.
No.
The Orioles are a vanity project for Elias to prove that you build a roster as an antithesis to the Yankees and Dodgers to win. I could potentially see that. I don't know that. How would anybody be able to prove that, though?
Right.
Elias is elevating people from within to maintain his personal vision. That's really vain. New ownership is naive and has no idea what they bought, and often defer to Elias rather than force his hand. I'll just keep going with these and touch on them afterwards. John Angelos gave Elias the green light to trade for Soto last year, but Elias said, no, that's probably the most ridiculous claim. And then Brendan Hyde is a puppet and a pushover, tried to fight back on the bullpen situation, saying the team needed to get better, not younger. And that resulted in the firings of Hyde's biggest confidants, Freddie Gonzalez and Ryan Fuller. I have in the notes, do we believe any of this? I'll tell you the only things that I believe in this, potentially, that Brandon Hyde is a bit of a puppet. I think that Brandon Hyde, I'm probably his worst fan. I do not like Brandon Hyde, but I can see them having hired Brandon Hyde to make him a yes man and have somebody that they can pull the strings on. I can see that, but I don't believe that that's the case. And I also believe the second half of the new ownership is naive. I don't believe the new ownership is naive. There's no chance of that. But I do believe that Rubenstein will defer to Mike Elias in his first offseason to give him an opportunity to build a World Series contender. Yeah. And then the results of 2025 will dictate what happens moving forward. Your thoughts on all of these points?
I'll start with the Juan Soto. John Angelos probably said, if we can get him, go ahead. And that's probably where that stemmed from. A lot of these points may have a little validity to it, fueled by anger. This was a disgruntled, fired employee, in my opinion. I can guarantee you John Angelos said, hey, if we can acquire Juan Soto, go ahead and try. And they probably picked the phone up in San Diego, said, give me Jackson Holiday, and that was the end of the conversation. Who cares, right? Would it have been cool to get Soto? Sure. I'm not giving up Basayo and Holiday, because when we when you've read from multiple execs around the league, that's everybody's asking point, even for mid-tier players. That's just where they start, because they want Baltimore prospects, and they want the high-end ones because they all know that they're very, very good. That's about the truth of that right there. Ownership being naive. When does a billionaire and multiple millionaires buy into something and not know what they're getting into? That was another part of the article. They didn't know what they were getting into. Mm-hmm. Look, I'll sell you a broken bridge that's no longer there in Baltimore anymore if you want it. Mm-hmm. Billionaires don't know what they're getting into. Stop it. They have a giant team of people that will pull analytics, that will pull numbers. They have lawyers. They knew exactly what they were getting into, and they knew exactly. They interviewed Mike Elias. They know what they're getting into. And then back to it, ownership defers to Mike Elias. Every single GM across every single sport is deferred to by the owner, except for Jerry Jones, because it's a whole nother conversation. They are not baseball people. Owners aren't. Look at Steve Bisciotti. He defers to Eric DaCosta. Why? Because he knows what he's doing, and that's why he was hired. You don't hire a GM, and you don't keep a GM around to make decisions for him. You just do it yourself. Save yourself the millions of dollars that you're paying him. It's a dumb article, in my opinion.
it's a dumb article.
Yeah, the person was upset. I get it. They were probably let go, or they may have been passed over for a position. Look, Mike hires from within. That's a really good run organization when you don't have to go outside.
Mm-hmm.
And that means your people are staying. Yet they let go of some bigger guys in the front office this year. Why? Because they wanted to go in a different direction. Was it maybe a different direction of what those guys wanted to go in? Maybe. And maybe that's where this is kind of all stemming from. The advanced scouts, like, look, they've been one of the better scouting teams since 2019. That 2019, 2020 drafts are why we're so good right now. Just in those two drafts. And they've built off that every single year. And, maybe these particular guys wanted to go in a different direction. I don't know. It's working. Why would you want to go in a different direction? I wouldn't hire from outside. If what I'm doing is working, why would I hire from the outside? Why wouldn't I keep promoting? I'm bringing these people in lower level positions. They're earning their job up. Why wouldn't I keep doing that? That's what successful businesses do. They don't go out and overpay somebody else from the outside to come in and shake everything up when it's working. It's just not how it works. But, yeah.
And look, I can't hate on Pitcher List. I can't hate on them. Somebody gives you that many nuggets, even if it's one source, you're going to run with it. You're going to write an article about it. And look, the article doesn't really deserve a ton of our time. The only reason we're giving it time is because it's making its rounds. It's about our home team. And a lot of people have read this article. You know what I mean? But I think that the only stuff that could even be potentially true coming out of this article is stuff that you would probably figure anyway.
Right.
I don't know that it is anything that's groundbreaking. The stuff that's supposed to be groundbreaking to me is just so wild and outrageous that it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
So and that's the long and short of it really is that the article, it may have hit on a few things, but I think that's by chance more than anything.
Is Brandon Hyde a puppet? Maybe.
Probably.
Aaron Boone is also a puppet.
Yeah.
That's why he's still there. Bruce Bochy is also doing what his GM tells him to do. Like, that's kind of how it works. Like a GM hires a coach because they're on the same page. And then when they become not on the same page, they're let go. So like to call him a puppet, like that's just kind of how things work. Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh still get along. They still have the same vision and he's still here. And when it becomes a point where they don't see eye to eye, he'll be let go. Like it's just how the chain of command works across all professional sports. To kind of really hone in on that, like that's kind of where I spit on the article, in my opinion.
Right. Exactly. Today's show brought to you by County Sports Zone. Find every score from every high school sporting event all year long at countysports.zone. Proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, Zach. So I said on the show last week that no matter what happened at the winter meetings, we still have 2 months left until spring training starts and the offseason is not over as of this past Wednesday. It's not over. It's not over. And no Mike Elias is going to make moves. Seems like the rest of the division, minus Tampa Bay, is making serious strides to get better, and the Orioles are twiddling their thumbs. That's one. Two, I know that signing multiple free agents to big long-term contracts makes it less likely you retain your own stars when their time comes. I get that point too. I said this past week, that I'm out on Mike Elias. I've been a Mike Elias supporter for a good while now, basically since he got here. Everything he said in his introductory press conference, every box that he laid out, he has checked almost in chronological order, right? Yeah. And so I've been his biggest supporter. He did everything he said he was going to do. The reason I say that I'm out is the liftoff comment. The stuff at the trade deadline in 2022, even though I agreed with those trades, I do think it was a bad look. And the fact that he had to go fly down to Texas right after the Mancini and Jorge Lopez trades to smooth things over with his team, I think is a bad look. Lift off from here and then not doing anything substantial is a bad look. Hearing that the owner is willing to spend money that it takes to make your team a World Series contender and then not doing it to this point, I think is also a bad look. Now, when I say that I'm out on Mike Elias, I'm not out on Mike Elias and the door is closed. But I think I don't like the idea that the GM of this team, with a new owner, with new ownership, with an excited fan base, with a good young team, I don't like that he's on the sidelines right now. He has every opportunity to go out there and make some key trades, maybe sign another offensive player to slot in the middle of your order. And I'll be right back in. I'm nobody to anybody. Nobody cares if I'm in or out. But the reason I said that is because I'm watching the players I think best fit the Orioles come off the board one by one. He can make trades to make this a very successful offseason. With that in mind, what pitchers make the most sense for the Orioles via trade, and what would they cost? The main names that I'm seeing: Seattle with Luis Castillo or Bryce Miller, Pittsburgh, Mitch Keller or Jared Jones. I know you love Jared Jones. St. Louis, Sonny Gray. Miami, Jesus Luzardo, and San Diego with Dylan Cease. Of these, which trades make the most sense to you? Am I leaving anybody out? And what's it going to cost for the Orioles to make these trades happen?
I like Jared Jones and Sandy I'm going to say it wrong. Sandy Alcantara or whatever.
Alcantara,
yeah. I would take him over Luzardo 1,700 times a day.
I would too.
And he's available too.
Crap out of me.
Yeah, and look, listen. Here's the problem with Miami pitchers. Miami's not a very good team to rehab pitchers. And we saw that with Trevor Rogers. We saw it with Luzardo, and we saw it with Sandy. When they get hurt, they take almost 2 years to get better. And I'm going to take a little shot at their training staff because it's not what it once was.
And what the hell happened to Sixto Sanchez?
Exactly, right? He got hurt, and now he's just – it's taken a long time. And that's just how their organization operates. So the whole Trevor Rogers thing – let's wait to this year because just Miami's just not good at rehabbing their guys. But I also wanted to kind of get back to and I started thinking about it last night when I was talking with Eric. The comments about liftoff, and I asked him his thoughts on it. I think John Angelos thought the team was his long term. And then a lawyer said, hey, when you acquire this team or this team is passed down to you, here's a $320 million capital gains tax that you're going to have to pay. And then it was, oh crap, I gotta sell the team. And lawyers got involved in this. How much of those comments of liftoff were halted by the sale? Because you can't really spend a whole lot of money when you're trying to sell something. Like across the board, the books have to be perfect. You can't add things, long-term deals and stuff like that. It was almost like the franchise had to freeze for that whole year until that sale was made, or while they're even looking for a sale. So maybe almost 2 years, everything had to be kind of frozen. I think maybe Mike spoke expecting to be able to lift off, and then it was like a couple months later we had to find out that they have to sell the team because they're going to get destroyed with capital gains tax. Mm-hmm. That screws up everything. And I'm gonna try to look into that and see how much they would have had to pay and how much that probably did halt the Orioles a little bit, because it's something to think about. And I don't think really anybody's thought about is it wasn't long after those comments where we found out that they were listing the team for sale, or they started talking about moving to Tennessee and stuff like that. Like that, it's you can't spend money during that. It's like inventory time at work. Like you can't bring stuff in, you can't let it go. Like everything has to freeze and hold until you say you're done. So I'm interested to kind of look into that a little bit more. I only thought about it just last night, but and I'll get back to the pitchers here. Like Dylan Cease.
To your point, it does make sense, and it would explain why he was trying to get public land with private money.
Yeah,
the situation trying to have private land with public money.
Yeah.
It would explain why he was trying to make that deal with the Maryland Stadium Authority, and to use taxpayer money. So that's I get that, and it would make sense to why they operated the way that they did. And we heard rumblings about them potentially selling the team for 2 years before it actually happened. I don't think any of us believed it would until it did. It's kind of how we feel about the Orioles winning a World Series. We don't believe they actually will until they do. type of thing. But go ahead with regards to the pitching.
Yeah, I mean, Cease is okay. He's going to give you a lot of innings. He's going to give you a lot, like a high strikeout rate. And just, he scares me against good teams. And we saw it in the playoffs again. Like, his career numbers against better teams are not great. They're pretty average. It's a lot to give up for a guy that in the heat of the moment in a late September game, if we're down a game to the Yankees and you're in Yankee Stadium, do I trust him? Absolutely not. I trust Dean Kramer over Dylan Cease when it matters. Because Dean has shown for 3 years now in a clinching moment, he rises to the occasion. Dylan Cease, on the other hand, not so much. If we acquired him, cool. That's how I feel about it. Cool. He doesn't move the needle for me whatsoever. We gave away prospects. Say if he does have a good year, right, and he shoves it down my throat, is he going to re-sign here? Probably not. So you're looking at another 1 year rental. And is he a 1 year rental as good as Burnes? Not even close. So he doesn't move the needle for me. Jarrett Jones does, primarily because he has 5 years control. If I'm going to give up some guys, I want it to be for a guy with 3+ years control. I think Sandy has 2. I'd be okay with Sandy. Sandy, you still have to give up Mayo or Kjerstad. You can still get away with some of the other prospects that we have. I don't know. There's guys to acquire. Luis Castillo, his fastball is getting worse every single year. Eventually, I'm going to get nervous with him throwing 93 to Aaron Judge. Like, again, that doesn't move the needle for me. Bryce Miller would. I would overpay for Bryce Miller. Again, because he has 4 or 5 years control. That moves the needle for me. Right? That's a guy that you can build around. You know, we're what's it going to be, 2025 next year? Grayson's contract's up in 27? Or is it 28? I think it's 27.
So he was a rookie in 23, so he's got
28
years, and then he's got 3 years after that arbitration. So he's got 6 years. So yeah, after the 28 season. That's
right, yeah. So Mountcastle's the first one at 27. That's right. So, I mean, but look, you get a guy with multiple years that gets to learn with Povich and Grayson and get better. Like, why not? Right. I want a guy with multiple years control at this point. Luzardo, again, doesn't move the needle for me.
The back issues, man. Like those don't just go away. They come back.
Right.
You know.
And it's his herky-jerky motion. Like, if they got him, cool. Same thing with Cease. If they got him, cool. He'll help a little bit. He'll probably get hurt again. He's got above average numbers, not elite numbers, just above average. I feel like we have enough above average guys. I want to go after elite guys. And I feel like Sandy is not elite, but he's above the above average tier, if that makes sense. Sure. He's a tick below elite and a tick above average. He's a very good arm.
He was elite not that long ago.
Right. And before the injury. But again, back to what the Marlins do. I see Joe saying Justin Steele. He's not available. He's not available. The Cubs this morning are looking at Cease. They're making a run. They're going to go and try and get somebody. They're going to try and make a run. They've got Kyle Tucker. They weren't a bad team. You know, hey, it is what it is. There's some other arms out there that we haven't even heard about that Mike will probably acquire. Same happened last year. Nobody was on Trevor Rogers. But I feel like that deal was made for this year. Knowing coming in that the Marlins aren't great at rehabbing and whatever you got. And he said it himself, whatever I get out of him this year is a bonus. We didn't get anything, but I feel like he's going to have a bounce back year. He's healthier. They're going to work him out better. There's somebody out there that is not even on the radar that we're going to acquire. There was a guy, and I can't remember his name. Was it Soriano from the Angels? Let me look that up. I really like, when I looked into him last year, Jose Soriano. He has 4 years control. He's 26. He's not amazing, but he had a good year. He had a 3.42 last year, started 20 games, 113 innings pitched, had 97 Ks. But he's a guy that again, you don't have to send a ton of prospects for, but he'll give you quality innings. And that name right there wouldn't move the needle for most fans. They're going to look at that and say, oh, another Mike Elias acquisition. But that's a guy that could help the team. Charlie Morton could help the team. Over the last 2 years, that guy has a 2.14 against AL East teams ERA. He's close to 40. I get it.
Savvy pitcher.
He is. He's not a guy who's going to blow the fastball by you, but he's going to hit his spots and keep you off balance because he's smart and he's been in the league forever. Max Scherzer, you and I have talked about this before. He's a guy that really helps the team, not just on the field, but in the film room, in the locker room. And I do think Sean Manaea is a guy that moves the needle for this team. A lot of people don't feel that way, but Sean Manaea is very good, and he has a very funky delivery. Yeah,
the solid left-handed pitcher in that rotation is exactly what this team needs. There's nothing against Cade Povich. He's just not there yet. He looked good in September, but Buck Showalter always said, "Don't be fooled by spring training, and don't be fooled by what happens in September." So Cade Povich has to do it for an extended period. A guy like Sean Manaea makes a lot of sense for this ballpark and this team.
Yeah. And he's also a guy who could come in and say, "Hey, Cade, once in a while, with nobody on, change your delivery. Get that weird kick out to the side and go a sidearm guy with 2 strikes." Like simple little things like that you can pick your brain from another veteran who's been around for a long time. He pitched very, very well in Oakland. Got hurt, struggled a little bit, but then he went back to New York, got himself healthy, had a very good year again. He's a guy that definitely moves the needle for the team. And there's other guys. Andrew Heaney, like I talked about him. He'd be okay. Same thing. Like he's just okay. He's an arm. He's depth. The thing I think the Orioles need to do is get depth. Don't go in the season with just 5 starters.
Yeah. You need at least 8 to 10.
Yeah. Don't bank on Albert Suarez being available as like the 6th starter. Like have options where Povich might be your 6 or 7. Like that's the best position for this team because injuries are going to happen. Whether they're just 1 week or they're 2 months, they're going to happen, and you need to have better options. Suarez was a great story last year. I do not see that success replicating. I mean, he had a 6.7 ERA in September. He got lit up, probably because of the innings limits. He hadn't pitched that much in a long time. The ball is different here than Korea. I know he went a lot of innings in Korea or Japan or wherever he was. The ball's different. It's weighted different and stuff. The seams are different. Everything is different here. The mound's height, it's a lot of things that the fans don't know. The mound height is different in Japan than it is here. So your legs and the muscles in your legs get used differently. Guys just get tired. But you can't go in there just banking on Suarez replicating. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, the team is in a position where they need to add at least 1, if not 2 starters. I think they need 2 to add to this rotation. And look, and I want to touch on this briefly because you got to get out of here at 11:30, and I want to get to some fan interaction. But you've got Grayson Rodriguez, you got Kyle Bradish, who's going to be coming back the second half of the year. The same thing with Tyler Wells. And then John Means doesn't have a contract. I thought he would have been signed by the Orioles now so he can rehab and potentially help them, even if it's out of the bullpen down the stretch. Could the Orioles be looking to extend younger pitchers like Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle Bradish on the cheaper side than if they were to go out and sign a Max Fried or Corbin Burnes? And that's kind of what they're thinking, is because you can't convince me that Kyle Bradish isn't of that same ilk that a Fried and a Burnes is, based on what I've seen from him the last 2 years. And you also can't convince me that Grayson Rodriguez can't get there. And I look at these guys who are 2 really young and controllable pitchers for the Orioles. Could they buy out some arbitration years for these guys and sign them to contracts? And is that maybe the way that they're thinking? And then with Tyler Wells, is he ticketed for the bullpen, and what kind of impact will he have on this pitching staff?
I think you got to wait. You want to extend contracts to Bradish and Grayson now, but you got to see what you got. Bradish might come back and never be the same again. Grayson hasn't finished a full season healthy yet. They've got things to prove, and if they do, yes, you have to sign those guys. If Bradish comes back 9/10 of what he was, that's still really, really good. May not be Cy Young, but that's still a very effective 3 or 4 in a rotation that can get you some quality outs. And he's a bulldog. Tyler Wells is a guy that is slated for the bullpen. Yes, I think his best work comes out of the bullpen, allowing him to just rear back and throw it with his size. It's a big deal as a hitter to have a guy with a 7 to 8, almost an 8-foot reach coming at you. The ball comes out way differently. It screws the timing up, and when you throw in the upper 90s, hopefully he can get back to that point. It's hard to hit. As a starter, you can't just rear back and throw as hard as you can every single time because you're supposed to make it 5 innings. I think he best suits in the pen, but he's a guy like Suarez who could give you that spot start here and there because he's done it. Even if it's for 2 or 3 innings, like he has the mentality, he knows how to kind of gear himself up and get himself ready before the game. Some guys don't. I'm a big Tyler Wells fan. Big Tyler Wells fan. I think he brings a lot to the organization mentally. You know, his bulldog mentality just fits the bullpen really, really well. He wants to go out there and just prove that he's better than you, and he shows it. He wears his emotions on his sleeve, and I'm okay with it because he wants you to know that he's better than you, and he thinks he's better than you at least. And I like that out of a guy. I can't wait for him to come back. Hopefully he's back to what he was. The problem is when we get these guys back, they're not going to be where they were immediately. It's going to take time.
Yeah. And same thing with Batista.
Yeah. Well, we're on year 2, so to say. If he ain't healthy, that's a big problem. Big problem. Because we're looking at what was it? September of 23, right?
August of 23 is when he got hurt.
The very end of August. We'll say the beginning of September. So we're at 3 months for that, another 12. So we're looking at 15 months. Spring training's another 3 months away. So we're looking at 18 months, almost 20 months of him rehabbing. If he ain't ready, and guys are making it back in month 11 and 12 nowadays, that's a big problem for our bullpen because they're putting a lot of eggs in that basket, and unless they go out and sign, a Minter or Tanner Scott or somebody else, Kyle Finnegan, that can be an insurance policy. Because I don't know if Dominguez is it, but if he is, great. He's just got a little bit more to prove. Obviously, we don't know that until they start playing, but they got to have some kind of insurance policy just in case.
For sure.
Because if he's not throwing 100 miles an hour, I'll be dead honest with you, 97, 98 flat, pretty easy to hit in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And the splitter's good, but look, that 4 miles an hour is a big deal. It's a big deal.
I agree with you. And like you said, 18, 19 months since his surgery, he should be ready to go. But pitching in game action is a lot different than pitching in simulated games and all that stuff.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how he's used in spring training. He said he should be a full go. How much work he gets as they ease him back into competitive pitching. We'll see. 30 seconds, man. John Means, any eggs in that basket?
I don't know. I mean, it's a second Tommy John. I'd give maybe a 2-year deal. He's missing this whole season. Maybe a 2-year deal like they did with the Batista. I seen Boston was interested in him. They probably thinking the same way. Like, could I maybe get something out of this guy? Look, the changeup is devastating, and the changeup doesn't typically bother your arm too much. That's something that even if he threw 81 miles an hour from the left side, that changeup is that good where he can get away with it. He's a guy that still could give you quality innings down the stretch, but he's also a guy that's been injured more times than not.
Yeah.
At what point do you cut the cord? The problem is you just have to evaluate. Like, he's going to come back and give someone decent innings. It's probably going to be out of the bullpen at this point. He's probably going to morph into what Danny Colon was, which is fine. He still has multiple years in his life that he can pitch. I don't know if the Orioles are going to be willing to do it or not. If you're going to do it, now's the time. 2 or 3 year deal, get him nice and cheap. We'll say 3 year, $10 million or something. But somebody else values him, he's probably gone.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Today's show brought to you by Project Game Day. You can join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, and Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Iambadejo after every Ravens game this year for Press Box's Project Game Day. They'll break down what happened in each game and what it means moving forward. Join the crew tomorrow, immediately following Ravens Giants at PressBoxOnline.com/game day. Today's show also brought to you by Hartford Holiday. Visit Hartford County this holiday season for a brand new event. You'll feel like you stepped into a holiday movie. Hartford Holidays is overflowing with the spirit of the holiday season, and you'll be amazed by the jaw-dropping light displays, thrilled by a visit to Santa's workshop, and have the holiday time of your life with sleigh rides, a special vendor village, s'mores making stations, and so much more. It's a holiday light experience, new at Ripken Stadium, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays through December 22nd. For ticket information, head to visithartford.com. That's visithartford.com. All right, few minutes to get some viewer interaction in here. We have Daniel Pitts. He said, I know I'm not the only one that thought that the O'Neill and Sanchez signings were the start of multiple signings, not the only signings. When that happened last Saturday and the winter meetings hadn't even started yet, I got really excited for what could be to come, and then nothing happened after that. Yeah. It's disappointing, but again, I know I tend to be a little reactionary. I can admit that about myself. But the offseason's not over. There's still plenty of moves that Mike Elias can make to make this team as good, if not better, than the other teams in the division. So let's keep it. Let's keep the hope alive.
Yeah, I mean, look. If a bunch of guys had signed in the winter meetings, I'd be a little concerned. But what was it, like 4, maybe 5 guys at the winter meetings itself? Like, there's still like 75 guys available. Like, it was a really boring winter meeting. So I don't think we're done by any means. I just think the market right now started really hot, and I think a lot of people expectations were really high at the winter meetings for just guys to start flying off the board, me including. And when it didn't, now it's like, okay, well, now guys are home with their family. We're December 14th. We're 11 days away from Christmas. We probably won't hear anything really pick up. We'll have 1 or 2 here and there. Nothing's going to pick up till January, in my opinion now.
Yeah, I think that we're heading for the slowdown until we get to the middle of January.
Yeah.
Jonathan Shankup says, if I see a New York Mets Juan Soto jersey, I would scream and cry. Imagine a fat baby tantrum. I'll tell you that I am already sick of all Juan's. They did something like Juan Soto looks so good in a blue jersey, and Juan Soto's Instagram. I'm like, nobody cares outside of New York. Like, he signed 2-3 days. Let's get nuts about it. Now just shut up and let's move on. Yeah. Like, I'm good. I'm good. Yep. All right. Daniel says, if you look at the stats, Tyler O'Neill is essentially a slightly better, cheaper version of Santander. Santander has never come close and never will come close to putting up the 2021 season that Tyler O'Neill put up. Tyler O'Neill, I think he's an athletic freak, and I think that if he can kind of like stop powerlifting and put himself into a more athletic regimen, kind of like what Santander did, so that he could end up playing 150 plus games each of the last 3 years. I think if you get that from Tyler O'Neill, change that regimen a little bit, I think he's a superior player all the way around to Anthony Santander.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize. So Santander was a switch hitter, but the splits, he dominated right-handed pitching. Absolutely annihilates them. Still a pretty decent hitter against left-handed pitching, but he was an annihilator against right-handers. So you basically just flip-flopped. You got an annihilator against lefties. Kjerstad, I'm going to hang my hat on it, will be an annihilator of right-handed pitching. So you kind of, I'm not going to say that you've replaced it, but you put yourself in a position to not decrease what you had previously. But coupled that with, we'll probably get a better Jackson Holiday. We'll get a healthier Adley Rutschman who will get better. You've got Cowser with a year of maturity now and learned big league pitching, and he's going to make some adjustments. You get a healthy Westberg who hopefully won't miss 50 games. I think overall the production from multiple guys will increase, and it'll you won't miss so much of it.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Santander leaving, and I've said it before. I think if Santander is here, he's hitting third for your team. Yeah. I just don't like that hitter profile as a 3-hole hitter. Your most productive and best hitter, in my opinion, should be hitting third. And I don't know, and home run and RBI wise, yeah, that was Anthony Santander, but he leaves a lot to be desired in a lot of other offensive categories.
I agree.
It is 11:30. You got to bounce.
Yeah, I mean, we're good. 10, 15 more minutes.
Okay. You sure? I don't want to keep you.
Yep. I'll get yelled at, but it's fine.
Daniel Pitts said the O'Neill signing is what Kjerstad needed. He won't have the whole load on right field on him. He'll mostly play against righties. Yeah, I mean, there's more righties than lefties in the game, so he'll get more playing time. I'd like to see Kjerstad get some fair run as an everyday player to see what he can do. I don't know that that's available in Baltimore for him at this point because they like to keep their DH slot flexible and fluid. Tyler O'Neill wasn't brought in to not play every day, and you're not going to not play Colton Cowser every day. I can honestly see Kjerstad being a big trade chip for this team. I think they might be looking at him as that just because they've got plenty of left-handed bats that can hit the ball out of the ballpark in their lineup.
Yeah. I talked to Billy Cook a little bit, not directly, but I watched Ryan McKenna stream Fortnite. And Billy plays with him a little bit. And then we were chatting about it one night in Ryan's chat. And Billy was honest with it. Pittsburgh loves Kjerstad. And hey, if that's what it takes to acquire Mitch Keller or Jared Jones, I love you, buddy, but hey, we need pitching.
Well, let's get both. Throw another player or something in there, and let's go. Right?
Would be nice.
They would have to throw in too much to get both in the same.
Probably.
Daniel Piss. Sanchez will be good trade value at the All-Star break when Basayo is ready. But Zach, you already made the point to this that Basayo isn't going to be ready to be a big league catcher by the middle of this season. It's going to take some time for him. I think that you're absolutely correct. 2026 is more likely his ETA with a cup of coffee in September.
Yeah.
Kyle H. He says, I think no matter what other pitcher we sign, if we don't get Corbin, this all season is a bust. Man, you had to have known back in July that we weren't getting Corbin Burnes back. Like you have to know that at this point. I have my own theories about it, but I think chief among them is, like you said, Zach, he's got 3 kids under the age of 3 years old. He's from the West Coast. His family lives in Arizona. The Giants, they're on the West Coast. It's a 45-minute flight, and they have spring training in Arizona. Corbin Burnes doesn't have to go anywhere away from home until the end of March if he signs out there. It makes too much sense for him to stay out there. If the Orioles sign him, I love it. I think it's very unrealistic.
Yeah. I think the Orioles go and get 3 like bona fide bullpen arms and 1 decent starter. Why would we consider that a bust? Like, could you name really anybody on Cleveland that was a good starting pitcher? Like that quickly? Right there.
Off the top of my head, no. Yeah.
Exactly. Now they had good numbers. They had good numbers, but nobody knows their name. But everyone knows the back end of their bullpen and how historic they were. And then we look at the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty sucked in the postseason. Yamamoto was pretty much all they had. But you know what really carried them? Their bullpen. Their bullpen was outstanding. So to say it's a bust if we don't get Corbin, I'm not on board with that because you could go and load up the bullpen to where all you need is your starter to get you through 5 and the door's shut. And that's a successful team, in my opinion. You win a lot of games when you have a stout bullpen.
Yeah, and we saw firsthand how bad the Orioles were the second half. They were like 8 games under 500 from the middle of June on. And it's because they lost 15 starting pitchers, but their 2 best relievers went down, and they were trying to replace them with 4 A players and guys that they picked up off the scrap heap. You need a good bullpen, especially in the division that you're in. Yeah. Jim, that's a last name. Santa Massimo. Mayo should be the DH. He's got to prove it. I mean, he was absolutely dreadful when he came up, and I get it. It happens. Cowser was bad. Holiday was bad when they first came up. Gunnar was okay. Westberg was okay, but he's got to prove it. And I agree with you, Zach. I don't think that he's going to be able to prove it enough in spring training for them to sacrifice the defense that he's going to have to play. He's not going to be your full-time DH.
Yeah, he's going to have to go to AAA like Kjerstad did and hit 13 home runs in the first month, and just hit 400 just like Kjerstad did just to get an opportunity. It's not going to be handed to him. Ryan O'Hearn is too good with runners in scoring position against right-handed hitting or pitching. Mountcastle, I think we all kind of expect a little bit better. They platoon Adley at DH. You got Tyler O'Neill who's going to platoon there too. He's really going to have to earn it. It's not going to be given to him.
Yeah. Jim also says Mateo and Rivera suck. Emphasis on suck. Look, Mateo is a fun player as far as the electricity and the energy that he brings to a game. He can't hit worth a lick. And anytime that he's been on the Orioles roster, he's managed to somehow get extreme playing time, like a lot of run, despite the fact that he can only hit left-handed pitching. I can see a scenario in which Jorge Mateo platoons with Jackson Holliday and plays second base when there's a left-handed pitcher. I can see a scenario of that at second base. He was an elite defender at second base, which just tells me he's the elite infielder. I'm not going to say he sucks. He sucks as a hitter. And Rivera, look, he doesn't have any options remaining. He's a guy who he's here because of his bat. He's going to have to stick or be exposed to waivers. If the Orioles want to keep him, maybe they're trying to look at him in spring training and see if they can sacrifice Ramon Arias for this guy's bat, who might be a little bit better, and hopefully the defense is good enough to hold that utility spot. I don't think that Rivera makes the roster out of spring training, but I think he's a huge DFA candidate. So I don't mean to steal all the thunder, man. Any thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you.
And Jim also says bring back Hayes. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I like Austin as a player.
I do too. But
he's a hard-nosed dude. He's going to give you 150% every effort. He just can't. He just can't stay healthy. And he wants a contract. Somebody out there is going to give him a deal that's going to allow him to get some good playing time. I don't see him coming here to be a platoon.
When we've seen Austin Hayes fully healthy and playing at his best, we've seen what he is. He is an all-star caliber player. He's a very good baseball player. Even the years when he played 130, 140 games, his second half production was so terrible, and it's because of the fact that he was dealing with nagging injuries. Now we learned that he had a kidney infection too. The guy can't win for losing. Right. I like Austin Hayes, and there was a point where I thought that he was the future of this franchise. That was 8 years ago, but I really have always been a big Austin Hayes fan. That ship has sailed. If it hadn't sailed, they wouldn't have traded him. They're not trading him just to bring him back. He's not that guy. He's not going to be that guy for this team because he can't stay healthy. Randall Fracase. O's have a natural center fielder in Holiday. Cy Bregman would have moved Westy back to second. Jordan Westbrook's a good defender at second base. He's a better defender at third base, but he's an athlete. You move Holiday to center field. You have Bregman playing third base. I can live with that. It's not going to happen. But
not for that money.
Do it. Yeah, for sure. David, if I pronounce your last name, it's either Devaney or Devaney. Mayo and Kjerstad are blocked at their positions. Need to be traded for starting pitching. Zach, I'll let you take this one.
I think we're at a point where those two guys are they have a spot here long term, but they're also tradable for the right player. I think we're past that point where we are hoarding certain guys out of certain trades. Those guys are finally available because of the defense. You're not 1,000% sold on either one of them at a specific defensive position. They're just here for the bat. And if you can acquire controllable starting pitching, I think they're going to look at those two guys to headline it.
Yeah,
one of them, I mean.
If they're going to trade Mayo, it's going to be a pretty legitimate starting pitcher. That he would be packaged for.
Yep.
Daniel, he kind of echoes your sentiment, Zach, that an overpay on a short-term contract like Burnes 4 years, $200 million. You said 3 years,
135, I think.
Yeah, $135 million. Short-term would make Burnes the highest-paid pitcher in the league. But like you said, his peripherals are all down across the board. The K's are down 3 straight years. For me, Corbin Burnes is on the back nine of his career at this point and betting on himself on a 3 or 4 year deal and trying to get another big contract. I don't know that he wants to do that. I think he wants the security to know that it's his last contract, make it the best one.
Yeah.
Daniel also says, I still am convinced Mountcastle was traded before opening day. I'm not. He's their best defensive first baseman, and I think part of the reason they moved that wall in is because they want him to start hitting more home runs.
Yeah, he complained about it a lot.
Yeah, that and I think that wall has been in his head. He's not the same player he was a few years ago.
Yeah, he actually led all first basemen in baseball at hitting the ball the opposite way. It was like a 35 or 38% clip. It was one of actually the higher in baseball. And he only hit 5 home runs away from Candy Yard. So he hit 8 with the wall. He was actually third on the team. But only hitting 5 outside of Candy Yards, that was the most concerning thing for me. But it goes to he was looking to hit the ball the other way just to be that hitter now because of the wall. Now I think if you get him from that 38 clip, hitting the ball the opposite field down to about a 28, and then kind of maybe get him like a 7% more pull and then 3% more, kind of in the middle of the field, you're going to see a lot more home runs hit out of Ryan Mountcastle.
And Ryan Mountcastle, to me, one of my favorite things about him that I saw in spring training a few years back is you can really see how good he is at finding the barrel. And I think it speaks to how good of a hitter he is overall, that he can change his approach and start focusing on going to right field. Now, look, a lot of these shots to right field, these hits to right field were little bloops, little flares and stuff like that, but he's still making it happen. With that wall moved in, the way that he can get his hands inside on an inside pitch and keep his hands in, and the way that he can find the barrel, I expect Ryan Mountcastle to have a good year. Now, I expect him to have a good year every year, and then every year we're having the same conversation in the off season. Yeah. But I think that he has the potential to be a special hitter if he can learn how to lay off that low and away slider. That's his Achilles heel.
It's a hard pitch to lay off of.
Yeah.
Ask Adam Jones.
Yeah. Yep. I've been yes. Jim says Holiday's a shortstop and Henderson the third baseman. Holiday doesn't have the arm strength. Not to do it at the big league level. I think he's a good shortstop. The arm's not there. Randall O's learned nothing with World Series loss to Kansas City. Speed kills in outfield. O'Neal, or maybe they're talking about 2014. O'Neal faster than Holiday. Really? O'Neal is faster than Holiday.
Which O'Neal?
Tyler O'Neal?
Tyler O'Neal. Yeah, he's fast. I don't know if he's faster than Holiday. Holiday's really quick. Like really quick.
Jackson Holiday said that he had a better sprint speed than Jorge Mateo. He's apparently the fastest guy on the team.
You know, it's kind of shocking when I looked at that. That whole like sprint speed per foot or whatever. Kerstad was only like 0.4 of a foot, or I guess 4 inches or something. I have to look at it again. Slower than Mateo.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So Kerstad can move too.
His acceleration probably isn't that great. Paul, you need to get a mic. If that's true, if I'm low, let me know, and I will 100% get a mic. I used to have one that's in storage right now, but I'll happily bring that right back out. I didn't realize I was so low. Randall, we don't see Basayo full-time till 2026. He's not ready. I don't believe Povich is ready either. We discussed that a couple of times today. I don't know that either one. Povich may be more ready than Basayo, but Basayo, like you said, Zach, not going to be ready till to be a full-time player until 2026.
Those are in a bad spot too, because we sit there and clamor that they don't develop pitching, and then we don't want to give them a shot either. It's hard. It's a hard balance because this is a good team and you want to make a run while you can, but you got a guy that is shown he doesn't have much left to prove in AAA. Like he's got to get his shot, and you're gonna have to roll in 2025 for a couple months with him in the rotation to see what he's got. Is he ready? You can't make that decision in AAA. They're in a tough spot. But McDermott's in the same position. Like he needs to get his shot, and you're going to have to bite the bullet.
It may have to be out of the bullpen. Just a few more comments before we get you out of here. None of your business says our chances of extending Holiday go from 5% to 0 if you move him to center field. Please stop with that narrative, Randall. There's a lot of people.
Adam Jones was a shortstop. Adam Jones was a shortstop, made himself a phenomenal career in center field when he came to Baltimore. He started the transition slowly with Seattle, and when he was acquired here, we kept him in center field, and look what happened. Look at Jackson Merrill last year. He was a shortstop, and in spring training, they gave him a glove, and they said, would you like to learn to play outfield to have a chance at making the big league team? He said yes, and was in top 2 rookie of the year. Fantastic defensive outfielder. San Diego has 6 starting players that were former shortstops.
Mhm.
If you're an athlete, you can move anywhere and make a very, very good career out of it. Do you make more money as a shortstop? Yeah. Yeah. You can still make millions in center field.
Oh, absolutely. Talk to you could name a bunch. I'm not going to get into that, but you're
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And that's why the Orioles really focus on drafting a lot of shortstops because if
Hmm.
you can play shortstop, you can play anywhere,
Ryan
essentially.
Mountcastle was a shortstop.
Yep, absolutely. And he had to move off of shortstop. One, the glove wasn't great, but the arm wasn't there.
Yeah.
Adip Mahmood, if Elias was heavily pursuing making progress up out of nowhere and not reported in the media move for a pitcher, what is the most likely? A Corbin signing, a cease trade, Framber, or something else? Well, Framber is almost basically off the table from what I'm hearing out of Houston. For me, it will be a cease trade. I don't think that Burnes is signing here. I don't think there's a shot. And like I said, Framber's not available. I don't think.
Look, we're an analytical team, and their analytic guys are doing the same thing that I am, and they're going to find somebody that fits the mold that no one is even seeing coming, and that's going to be the guy they're going to trade for. I think the
I
Cease thing is probably started by John Morosi or somebody like that because
Yeah.
they think it fits. Does it fit?
Mhm.
Sure. The analytics department is going to tell that they're going to find somebody to acquire that no one sees coming.
Yeah. And I think that from these three options, the most likely is a cease trade. I don't know that any of these are likely, though.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, I'm going to let you get out of here. I've gotten you in enough trouble today. Certainly appreciate you. I'm going to try and answer as many of these comments as I can, despite the fact I know as soon as you leave, that online viewership that we have right now, the live viewership, which is the highest it's ever been, that's going to just drop down significantly. I appreciate you.
Now, you guys should stick around and listen to Paul. It's a good show here.
No, I appreciate you saying that. What can we plug for you before you get out of here?
Anywhere you guys want to just talk baseball, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's all the same handle, PigTownSports. Look, I love talking ball, and I sit here and talk with you guys all day.
Yeah, I wish you could sit here and talk. I feel like we could do a 3-hour show every
We
Saturday.
could. My wife would lose her mind, though.
Mine too. And oh my gosh. But honestly, and we would probably still go long. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So Zach, awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll be reaching back out to you here soon. Okay.
I appreciate you having me on.
For sure, man. See you.
All right, see you guys.
All right, that was Zach Moore, PigTown Sports, same handle on anywhere you get your baseball information, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, my show, his show, wherever you can find him. The guy loves talking baseball, and he's got a great baseball mind. So really love having him on the show. Randall says Arias carried his weight and then some the second half. I keep him over Mateo. They love Ramon Arias. They absolutely love Ramon Arias. He's a Brandon Hyde guy. I think that Rivera is only here to see if he can provide the same type of defense that Arias provides, and maybe has a little bit better of a bat. But I personally don't think Arias is going anywhere unless some team values him as an everyday player in a trade. I think Arias is here for as the Orioles' main utility infielder. Randall says O's need perfect presentation to Sasaki, signing Burnes and trading for Miller, Cease, or Gilbert should do it. Gilbert ain't coming here. I can see Miller, Burnes, and Cease won't be here either. Miller's the only one that I think is likely. And how much you're going to pay? I like Zach said, I'd overpay, but three of those four things aren't, in my opinion, aren't happening unless the Orioles can get Cease for a pretty good deal. Because I don't think they should be looking at him as a 1-year rental type of player. Let's see. Randall also says, when will Kramer cross the bar to become the number 2 starter he should be? I mean, that's up for interpretation, my friend. But look, the thing with Dean is Dean will have a number of good starts in a row, but then he'll also have a number of starts where he'll give you 3 innings of shutout ball. Then the 4th inning, he gives up 3 or 4 runs randomly, and another 2 innings of shutout ball, which is a number 5 pitcher in a rotation. He's got great stuff. He's got that bulldog mentality. He wants to pitch 300 innings every year. He's got to be 2022, he was phenomenal. After the first month of the season in 2023, he was phenomenal. This past year, he struggled a good bit, especially coming back from the injury, and then he kind of settled it down. I think you have to see him from start to finish be a really good pitcher, be what he was in 2022 once he came up, and what he was in 2023 after the first month of the season, before you can pencil him in as a number 2 or even a number 3 in this rotation. Randall says, I'd move Holiday for Ski. The Pirates aren't going to do that. I think anybody would. The Pirates have the best pitch, maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball under team control for six years. Well, now 5 years because he won Rookie of the Year. They are not trading Paul Skeens for anybody. Randall, Westy is keystone to the team. Love the guy. Me too. He's probably my favorite player on the team. Adit, if they bring in Verlander, Scherzer, Morton as well as someone else, where do you put them in the rotation? I think that any of those guys will probably get the opening day start because of who they are, but I think that what their production would be more of a number 3 at this point in their careers. Guys, that I gotta go. I gotta go to the bathroom so bad. I can't hold it anymore. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors for everything that they do. Without you, we don't have a show. I want to remind you the Governor's Challenge, about the Governor's Challenge. The top high school basketball talent from across the country returns to Wacomico Civic Center December 26th through the 30th. Witness 5 full days of elite competition featuring over 140 high school basketball teams. For tickets and info, visit govchallenge.org. That's gov, challenge.org. Thank you to everybody. 70 people. We have never had this much. We get good viewership and good streaming after the fact, but 70 people tuning in live still at 11:51 a.m. By far the most we've had live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Zach Moore from PigTownSports for joining us today. Until